Let me set the scene. It is 1877 America, and the Confederacy had just lost the war. President Andrew Jackson just pardoned the southern states, meaning he let them back into the Union, after the Union Army set up a legal system, allowing African Americans to have rights now. Never mind. The Jim Crow laws were laws that enforced racial segregation in the United States between 1877 and 1964. These laws usually differ between different states and cities, but the most common ones make it where African Americans and Caucasians couldn't use the same bathrooms, drinking fountains, or eat at the same tables. These laws seem very bizarre to us now, like imagine getting arrested for playing checkers at your friend's house in Birmingham, Alabama. But sadly, these laws were very normal in the 1900s. Now you might be thinking, what happens if you break one of these laws? Well, let's just say lynchings were pretty common back then. If you don't know what those are, they are basically an unofficial public execution without a trial performed by civilian mobs. African Americans were also subject to longer prison sentences than Caucasians, due to courts being a majority Caucasian. Now you might be asking yourself, who was this Jim Crow man? Was he a writer, politician, former Confederate general? Actually, he was none of those things, because he never existed. The name actually came from a performance called Jump Jim Crow, which was a song and dance performed by Thomas Dartmouth Rice, whose performer name was Daddy Rice. The performance features a person in blackface paint dancing around while singing. It was very racist, and in fact, here's a little snippet of it.
Wheel about and turn about and do just so. Every time I wheel about, I jump Jim Crow.
This dance became very popular. But if the Union was trying to give everyone equal rights, how did these laws even get passed? Well, the trouble started after the Reconstruction period when President Andrew Jackson sent the Union Army home and let the southern states back into the Union, giving them control over their states again. The former Confederates did not like the African Americans having rights, so they tried to limit them as much as possible. They did this by proposing laws to separate African Americans and Caucasians as much as possible. But how did they do this with an African American population that could vote? Well, groups like the KKK used violence to scare them for voting. Then the laws passed. Then they passed harder voting requirements so that they could not get rid of the laws by voting them out. The Jim Crow laws lasted a long time, roughly 87 years, but human rights activists such as Martin Luther King Jr. convinced the federal government to change their minds about segregation, and in 1964 the Civil Rights Act was passed, which outlawed segregation and further united our beautiful, wonderful, great nation.